The moment Catherine stepped out wearing Queen Victoria's coronation earrings, royal aides froze. What was meant to be a simple diplomatic appearance turned into a thunderclap heard across every palace. This wasn't just jewelry. This was a declaration. And within minutes, whispers surged through Windsor corridors. Was this the Princess of Wales quietly claiming the crown itself? Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. It began as a routine appearance, a foreign dignitary visit, staged with the usual careful protocol. But when Catherine emerged, poised and radiant, wearing the unmistakable coronation earrings of Queen Victoria, the atmosphere changed instantly. For those trained in royal symbolism, this was not an accident. These earrings had only ever graced two women, Victoria herself on the day she became queen, and then Elizabeth II shortly before she was declared heir presumptive. The lineage of wearers didn't just mark tradition, it signalled intention. And with Queen Elizabeth gone, and Charles's reign already faltering under weighty public scrutiny, Catherine's choice sent an unmistakable ripple of seismic magnitude through the monarchy. Within minutes, media outlets flooded with images of the Princess of Wales in the storied diamonds. Every social feed, royal blog, and newswire lit up, debating the meaning. The Daily Chronicle posted the headline, "A Queen in Waiting or a Queen in Motion." Royal watchers compared the act to Diana's iconic revenge dress, not in style, but in message. One veteran palace aide described it as the boldest unspoken act we've seen since the abdication crisis. Inside Buckingham Palace, the mood shifted from confusion to panic. Camilla, reportedly viewing the footage live in her private sitting room, stood up and left without speaking. Multiple sources confirm she refused to attend a planned charity dinner that evening. The Queen Consort was blindsided, and her silence screamed louder than any official rebuttal. By nightfall, crisis meetings had already begun at Highgrove. Charles summoned senior aides and legal advisors, demanding clarity on how Catherine accessed the historic jewels. The earrings had been locked away for decades, kept under strict vault security. Only a handful of living royals even knew where they were stored. Their sudden appearance on Catherine's ears pointed to a deeper truth. Someone within the inner circle had approved it, or Catherine had moved without permission. Either possibility was equally alarming. If she had secured the earrings with backing, then she had allies within the crown apparatus itself. If she had not, then she had just committed the boldest act of silent rebellion in royal memory. Yet Catherine remained publicly mute. She made no comment, issued no statement, and carried herself as if everything was completely normal. But this calculated silence only stoked the inferno. For within the monarchy, where every gesture is scripted and every accessory is encoded, a silent act can be louder than a coronation speech. And this one echoed not just through palaces and press rooms, but through centuries of inherited power. She wasn't asking for permission, she was defining inevitability. And while the surface remained calm, deep beneath it, tectonic plates of power were shifting fast. But to understand the true weight of Catherine's silent declaration, we must revisit the long-buried legacy of the earrings themselves and what they've meant in every royal power shift since the Victorian era. They're not just diamonds. Victoria's coronation earrings were rumoured to be infused with a legacy spell passed from one monarch to the next, hidden in velvet-lined vaults, rarely touched, never worn casually. For Catherine to wear them without a coronation, that crossed an invisible line, and Camilla knew it. The story of the earrings begins far before Catherine's bold appearance. In 1837, a young Queen Victoria received them as a coronation gift from a powerful German duke, an ancestral connection shrouded in politics and whispers of ancient allegiances. The diamonds were not listed in the public gift register, and palace records refer to them only as Item V14, Sovereign Gem, Foreign Origin. Even then, it was said that Victoria wore them not merely as adornment, but as an invocation of destiny. She believed the earrings signalled readiness, a silent contract between wearer and crown. Those within the inner court called them the Queenmaker's Promise. But after Victoria's death, The earrings disappeared into the royal vaults, locked away under personal instructions in her final codicil. They would not surface again in public view for over a century. Neither Princess Margaret nor Princess Diana ever touched them. According to leaked memoir notes by a former court jeweler, both women requested access Margaret during her youthful engagements, and Diana shortly before her trip to Australia. Both were denied. Queen Elizabeth, however, wore them once, and only once at a private dinner at Windsor, attended by select members of the Privy Council. It happened just weeks before her official designation as heir presumptive. Those in attendance later described a spiritual tension in the room, as if something ancient had been stirred. After that, the earrings vanished again. Rumours swirled, but no confirmation ever came. The tradition, if it could be called that, was unwritten but unbreakable. The earrings were not to be flaunted, they were to be summoned. In the whispered corners of royal tradition, a phrase became attached to them: the right of readiness. It was never inscribed in law, never spoken aloud in official circles, but it lived in the minds of those who understood succession beyond mere bloodlines. Wearing the earrings before one's coronation was understood as a personal declaration. I am ready to rule, even if the crown is not yet mine. A dangerous message, a powerful one. And only 3 women in history had ever dared to send it. Camilla, despite her position, was never offered the privilege. According to a former lady-in-waiting, Queen Elizabeth made it known, discreetly, that those stones will never touch unearned ears. It was a brutal, quiet slight, and Camilla never forgot it. She had waited decades to become queen consort, endured scandal, criticism, and exile from public favour. Yet still, the earrings eluded her. Even at her coronation alongside Charles, they were nowhere to be seen. So when Catherine stepped out wearing them not in private, but before the world, it wasn't just provocative, it was incendiary. No vault logs have confirmed how she gained access. No staffer has come forward with authorization. Even senior members of the royal collection have refused to comment. Some believe Queen Elizabeth left quiet instructions granting Catherine access when the time was right. Others suspect an inner circle ally acted on her behalf. Either way, what was certain is this: Catherine didn't stumble into those earrings. She reached for them, but if the earrings were sacred, then Catherine's act was sacrilege. And for Camilla, this wasn't fashion, it was warfare. According to leaked staff memos, Camilla's voice echoed off the Balmoral stone walls that night. The Queen Consort felt blindsided, humiliated, and above all, threatened. For the first time, insiders say, she began drafting a formal letter of protest to King Charles. Remove Catherine from succession discussions or face an internal schism. She allegedly locked herself in her private study for hours after seeing the images of Catherine wearing Queen Victoria's sacred earrings. The silence that followed wasn't calm, it was charged. By morning, she refused to appear at a scheduled charity gala, sending shockwaves through the royal rota. Courtiers scrambled for explanations, but none were provided. Within hours, Charles summoned a private meeting, away from media glare, calling on the one man who had managed coronations, funerals, and abdications, the Duke of Norfolk. What was once whispered behind closed doors had now become formal. Camilla saw Catherine's act not as a misstep, but as a coup in diamonds. The emergency meeting at Clarence House was tense, and according to those briefed afterward, more personal than procedural. Camilla arrived first, followed by the Duke and Lady Lansdowne, Camilla's closest confidant. Charles sat quietly, visibly distressed. He was caught between the woman he had fought the world to love and the future queen the people were now beginning to claim. Camilla, however, was not in the mood for sentimentality. She laid out her fears with terrifying clarity. If Catherine's symbolism went unchallenged, it wouldn't just chip away at her own influence. It would, in her words, dismantle the monarchy from the inside out. Her allies supported her. Lord Chamberlain reportedly demanded that Charles issue a public clarification of succession intent within 7 days. As the walls closed in, palace staff watched the drama unfold in hushed corridors and coded emails. Leaks suggest Camilla began crafting a document that amounted to a royal ultimatum: either Catherine's influence is curbed, or Camilla would step away from her public duties entirely. To some, it seemed like a bluff, but those closest to her believed the threat was real. She had waited too long, endured too much, to be reduced to a ceremonial shadow, while another woman, younger and more beloved, cast her own crown before the throne was even cold. Then came the call to Princess Anne. Aides overheard fragments of it, sharp words, emotional pleas, and at one point, a chilling phrase. Camilla feared she was being erased. Not just from the pageantry, but from the legacy. Anne, ever stoic, reportedly reminded her that titles come and go, but the crown demands sacrifice. But even that wasn't enough to steady Camilla's growing sense of siege, for in her mind, Catherine wasn't rising, she was taking, and the monarchy, ever reliant on optics, now had two women at its center, one glowing with silent momentum, the other scrambling to hold what remained of her hard-won stature. But while Camilla plotted retaliation, she didn't realize Catherine's next move would be even more calculated and even more public. 3 days after the earring scandal, an unlisted black vehicle pulled up to Kensington Palace. Inside were 3 senior members of the Royal Advisory Council. Catherine greeted them not as a princess but as a sovereign in waiting. And what unfolded inside would forever change the future line of succession. Behind closed doors, far from the flashbulbs and public speculation, a meeting took place that would have once been unthinkable. No press, no fanfare, not even a scheduled briefing on the royal calendar. Only hushed arrivals, discreet exits, and a gathering so precise in its secrecy that even top aides were kept uninformed. Yet word still slipped out just enough to stoke the fire. 3 members of the Royal Advisory Council had arrived on Catherine's request, and their purpose wasn't ceremonial, it was constitutional. The topics discussed, according to a source with direct knowledge, included diplomatic contingency planning, transitional scenarios in the event of sudden incapacitation of the monarch, and most shockingly preliminary outlines for coronation logistics. No official documents were released. No protocols publicly invoked. But the implication was staggering. This wasn't a theoretical exercise. Catherine wasn't asking if she would serve. She was preparing for when. And yet, the most deliberate absence in that room spoke louder than the words exchanged. William was nowhere to be found. Not in the palace, not in a nearby room, not even looped into the agenda. Sources say this was by design. Catherine had insisted she meet the council alone. She wanted her voice, her position, her resolve to be understood independently. No buffers, no intermediaries, just her and the future of the crown. What she handed them, reportedly, was a written statement, a brief but profound declaration of personal intent. 5 words that would later circulate in royal circles like a whisper cloaked in thunder, prepared to serve when called. No embellishments, no demands, just clarity. One advisor later described Catherine's demeanor during the exchange as unshakable. Not cold, not ambitious, but resolute, as if she had made peace with something larger than herself. When asked, Buckingham Palace offered the standard dismissal. No such meeting occurred. But behind the scenes, there was no attempt to truly bury it. The palace didn't refute the contents because they couldn't. The vehicle logs were real. The council members confirmed attendance. The denials were, as ever, a way to maintain the illusion of stillness in a sea of quiet storms. And yet, this wasn't Catherine's boldest stroke. That came next, at Windsor Castle, when a sealed letter changed everything. Windsor staff described it as faintly humming. A velvet-sealed envelope retrieved from Queen Elizabeth's private vault, addressed not to Charles or William, but to the lady who knows. And its contents? An endorsement written decades ago, naming Catherine as the future matriarch of state. When Catherine accessed Queen Victoria's coronation earrings, it triggered an automatic cross-reference alert inside the Windsor archives, a little-known fail-safe built into the royal jewellery vaults. This obscure system, implemented during Queen Elizabeth II's reign, was designed to track not only who accessed which crown jewels, but to activate certain legacy protocols if specific heirloom pieces were removed. The earrings, being among the most symbolically volatile, were coded with such a trigger. Within minutes of Catherine donning them, a red-sealed file untouched for decades was flagged for review. Inside it, a single envelope, thick parchment, royal seal, but the addressee was what stopped the room cold. To the lady who knows. No one had ever seen such a title used in royal communication before. Not even senior archivists. But when it was shown to the Lord Chamberlain, he reportedly turned pale. The handwriting was unmistakably that of Queen Elizabeth II. The date, 1989. The cipher, personal and rare, used only for letters of succession or private testament. With trembling hands, the envelope was opened under high security. What lay inside, if confirmed to be genuine, would rewrite the entire architecture of royal legacy. The letter was brief but precise. It outlined, in the Queen's own voice, a vision for the future, one not tied strictly to bloodline but to character. It named a hypothetical woman who might one day rise alongside the monarchy and be called not Queen but Matriarch of State. A term no one had ever seen in public constitutional documents. A term that suggested power not just symbolic, but sovereign in its own right. And at the end of the letter, a chillingly familiar line: "She will be known by readiness, not birthright. And when she wears the sovereign seal, the crown must listen." Beneath it, the name, Catherine. No one had shown this letter to Charles. Not during his reign, not after Elizabeth's death. Sources say when it was presented to him at Clarence House, he was visibly shaken. One aide described his reaction as grief-laced disbelief. He had lived his entire life preparing for the crown, believing himself the true and final vessel of Elizabeth's hopes. And yet here it was, her private voice from a different era, whispering not of him, but of the woman who now stood beside his son. To Charles, it felt like betrayal. But to those in the room, it felt like prophecy fulfilled. The letter also included what is now referred to as the flexibility clause, a little understood legal observation that the sovereign, under private prerogative, may advise on alternate configurations of succession in the presence of constitutional evolution. The wording was vague, deliberate, powerful, and its very ambiguity made it even more dangerous. Royal archivists placed the letter under immediate protective review, with digital copies held in sealed royal cloud servers. Only 5 individuals currently have access. And still, Catherine has said nothing. Not a word to the press. No commentary. No denial. But silence has become her sharpest weapon. And now, with the past pressing forward to vindicate her, she no longer needed to fight with symbols. The next move was hers, and it would be public. With the past now weaponized in her favor, Catherine's next public appearance would deliver her message with no ambiguity and no turning back, no crown, no orb, no anointing oil. But to those watching, it was a coronation all the same. Catherine entered Westminster Abbey in a deep blue sash, wearing Queen Victoria's earrings again, this time with Princess Elizabeth's brooch. She never spoke a word. But her silence drowned out centuries of protocol. The occasion was supposed to be solemn, a remembrance service honoring the fallen, but everything about Catherine's arrival shattered expectations and tradition. She stepped into the abbey not as a consort in waiting, but as a sovereign in shadow. The pairing of 2 royal artifacts, Victoria's coronation earrings and the brooch worn by Elizabeth during her wartime broadcasts, was no accident. It was a deliberate construction of legacy, stitched together with symbols far older than any current reign. The blue sash draped across her shoulder only deepened the interpretation. She wasn't mourning the past, she was embodying its return. The press didn't call it fashion, they called it code. Flanked by royal guards and positioned prominently beside senior clergy, Catherine took her seat where reigning monarchs usually sit. And although the seating chart hadn't officially changed, the energy within the abbey had. Palace aides whispered of an internal standoff with the Archbishop of Canterbury in the days prior. He reportedly refused to offer any official blessing for Catherine's participation in the remembrance address. A move that spoke volumes, and yet, it changed nothing. Her mere presence turned the service into something else entirely. For those watching on screens across the UK and around the globe, the message was clear. She's ready. More than ready. But not everyone remained in place. Queen Camilla, who had arrived earlier that morning, reportedly left halfway through the ceremony. No explanation was given, but multiple cameras caught her empty chair as Catherine read a passage from the Book of Psalms, an act previously reserved for either the monarch or their direct heir. Camilla's departure was described by insiders as a walkout in protest, though Buckingham officials denied the allegation. Still, the optics were impossible to ignore. 2 queens had entered that abbey, but only one remained at the centre. As the service concluded, the public response was overwhelming. Social media erupted. Editorials across Europe dubbed it the silent coronation. For the first time, polls showed public support, tipping in Catherine's favour, not just as future queen consort, but as a standalone monarch. The tide had turned, and while William remained outwardly composed, his quiet smile during the recessional told its own story. He had not stood beside Catherine, nor had he spoken on her behalf, but his absence from any opposition was the clearest form of support. He was letting her lead. The monarchy had shifted again, not with a death, not with an abdication, but with an appearance, a performance of quiet power that dared the crown to catch up. And as Catherine walked out of the abbey into a storm of flashing cameras and hushed reverence, the message she delivered was louder than any anthem sung that morning. As crowds cheered for Catherine, the shadows in Clarence House deepened. Because Charles had finally made a decision, and it would break the family in 2. On a cold Sunday morning, Charles summoned Catherine to Sandringham alone. No advisors, no William, and there, beneath portraits of monarchs past, he delivered an ultimatum: withdraw, or force the crown into constitutional chaos. The drive from London had been quiet, deliberate. Catherine knew what was coming. After weeks of growing speculation, ancient artifacts, and thunderous public appearances, the storm had finally reached the gates of the monarch himself. Charles, increasingly isolated and emotionally battered by internal tension, had reached a breaking point. He chose Sandringham not for nostalgia, but for symbolism. The house where the monarchy had steadied itself through wars and abdications was now the setting for its most intimate crisis. Behind closed doors, he did not raise his voice, but his words carried the force of lineage, duty, and desperation. He told her she was dividing the family, that her silence was louder than dissent, that her symbols, her gestures, her choices, each one threatened the fragile equilibrium he had spent a lifetime trying to protect. He offered her everything within protocol, a guarantee of her future as queen consort, assurances of public honour and private power. But he would not tolerate a shift in the line of succession. Not now, not while the crown still rested on his head. Catherine listened, calm, unwavering, and then she answered not with anger or plea, but with a single line etched with finality. The crown no longer waits to be given. It is claimed. The sentence hung in the air like a sword unsheathed. According to a long-time staffer, Charles, usually measured to the point of coldness, began to weep. The king broke that day, the aide said, not from rage, from realization, because he knew the tide had turned, not by force, but by inevitability. That night, legal teams were summoned, not to remove Catherine or sanction her, but to review Queen Elizabeth's sealed letter once more. They combed through every line, every cipher, every marginal note. The language was clear in its intent, but maddeningly vague in its legality. Elizabeth had not changed the succession, but she had redefined its spirit. And now, that spirit had a face, a voice, a following. In the halls outside the confrontation, another moment unfolded in eerie silence. Prince George, returning early from a scheduled outing, allegedly passed near the private drawing room and overheard fragments of the confrontation. What he heard remained sealed in, family confidence. But later, according to an unnamed family source, he would write in his private journal, "They spoke like 2 thrones fighting, but I only saw one winner. But even as Charles reeled, Camilla made her move a desperate one that would risk everything and expose royal secrets long buried. Camilla knew she had one final card. Buried deep within royal protocol, Clarion was a clause, forgotten by most but never by her, that allowed the reigning queen consort to name her successor in the event of dual monarchical contention. And she named someone the world had never expected. Clause 4.3, nestled in the dense architecture of royal protocol Clarion, had been drafted in the aftermath of the Edward VIII abdication, a contingency for when the throne faced not just uncertainty, but conflict. It was designed as a stopgap, a mechanism that would only be activated in moments of crisis, when the monarchy risked fracturing beyond repair. Most within the modern royal circle had either dismissed it or buried it in layers of ceremonial irrelevance. But Camilla hadn't forgotten. She had studied every page of the Crown's invisible rulebook, waiting for the moment she might need it, and that moment had arrived. She invoked the clause quietly, formally, and with breathtaking precision. In a sealed memorandum delivered to the Crown Chamber, she named Princess Beatrice as heir of the matriarchal line. It was a move no one had anticipated. Not Charles, not William, not even Beatrice herself. And that was the point. Camilla needed chaos. She needed to fracture the narrative that had so far positioned Catherine as the singular future. By placing Beatrice well-liked, loyal, but entirely unprepared into the conversation, she shifted the monarchy's fault lines overnight. The headlines were immediate and thunderous. 3 queens, 1 throne. Beatrice, blindsided and visibly shaken, issued a response within hours. She respectfully declined the designation, calling it misguided and inappropriate, but the damage had already been done. The public didn't see a refusal, they saw a crisis. Constitutional experts scrambled across broadcast networks to explain the clause's validity, and some warned that the monarchy now stood on the edge of a crown rupture not seen since 1936. Parliament requested emergency briefings. Foreign embassies sought clarity on protocol. Royal aides, once silently divided, now openly took sides. And yet, through it all, Catherine remained composed. She issued no condemnation, no rebuke, no emotional plea, just a public message of unity. In it, she wrote, "The strength of the monarchy lies not in competition, but in service. I remain committed to the crown, regardless of title or turbulence." It was brilliant, measured, regal, and above the fray. But beneath the words was a powerful subtext. She would not be moved. Still, the palace shook. Camilla, once confident in her position, now appeared isolated. Her act had not galvanized support, it had exposed desperation. And Charles, broken by confrontation and confused by legacy, retreated further from public view. The monarchy, for the first time in decades, stood not as a singular symbol of continuity, but as a battlefield of interpretation. Who held the future, the one crowned by protocol, or the one chosen by people and prophecy? But as chaos swirled through every royal hall, an unexpected voice emerged, one that had been silent throughout it all. And when he spoke, everything changed. The world turned quiet as Prince William finally stepped forward. Flanked by his children, eyes steeled, he delivered a simple statement from the gardens of Kensington. And with those 21 words, he shattered centuries of patriarchal succession and stood by the woman who had already become a queen in every way but title. The statement was unannounced, untelevised, and yet by nightfall, it had ignited every screen, speaker, and royal newswire across the globe. William, long accused of cautious neutrality, had finally taken a side, and he did it with the weight of both love and legacy. His exact words, "The crown must follow courage, not chronology. My wife is ready, and I stand with her," did more than end speculation. They shifted the foundation of the monarchy itself. No longer was this about silent gestures or coded appearances. William had spoken, and with him, the future had been chosen. Public response was instant and thunderous. Support for Catherine soared past 89% across polling institutions. The message wasn't just received, it was embraced. What had once been a swirl of tabloid tension became, overnight, a wave of collective recognition. For the first time in modern royal history, the British public saw the possibility of a queen who hadn't been appointed, but earned. One who didn't wait for the crown to be passed, but moved toward it with grace, defiance, and unwavering service. Behind palace walls, the consequences of William's declaration were felt immediately. Charles, already strained and retreating in the face of growing internal pressure, stepped back from active reign within days. The official reason, as released in a carefully worded statement, cited health and legacy reflection. But those close to the monarch confirmed what many suspected: Charles was no longer fighting. He had chosen peace over persistence, quiet over confrontation. In private, aides described his decision as a father's surrender, not a king's. It was an ending he had not foreseen, but one he had come to accept. Her counterclaim, her final bid for control through Protocol Clarion, had left her politically isolated and emotionally drained. She withdrew from the public eye altogether, quietly retreating to Raymill House. No statement, no farewell, just absence, sudden and complete. It was a silent concession that the Crown's centre had moved beyond, to her reach. In the days that followed, Parliament began consulting on a ceremonial shift, a formal transition to what would be known as the dual sovereignty model, a construct in which ceremonial and constitutional power could be reflected through more than one figurehead. The plan was still theoretical, but the intent was clear. Catherine would no longer walk in the shadow of future queenship. She had become a sovereign force in her own right. And in perhaps the most poetic gesture of all, Catherine returned the coronation earrings to the royal vault. No fanfare, no escort, just a final, symbolic act that said it all. "Until the moment is right," she whispered, according to one guard on duty. That moment, it seemed, was no longer dependent on titles. It had already arrived and the nation knew it, and so, in silence, sapphires, and seismic devotion, Catherine redrew the map of monarchy without ever needing a throne. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.